Get ready to level up your ratio solving skills as we dive into 3 incredible tricks and tips to master the art of calculating ratios. Let's divide $50 into a ratio of 6 to 2. In this case, the ratio can be simplified to 3 is to 1 by dividing both sides by 2. Now, to determine the total value, add up the parts of the ratio. In this case, 3 plus 1 equals 4. To calculate the value of each part, we will divide the total value by the number of parts. In this case, the total value is $50. Let's divide $50 by 4, and it gives us $12.50. Now we need to distribute the amounts, so we multiply the value of each part by the corresponding number in the ratio to distribute the amounts. We will multiply 12.50 by 3, and it will give us. For the two parts, we will multiply $12.50 by 1, and it will give us. So, out of the total $50, $37.50 will be allocated to the first part and $12.50 will be allocated to the second part, according to the ratio 6 is to 2. For the second tip and trick, let's compare two ratios. Let's take this example. So, first we need to establish the relationship between x, y, and z. Since x is to y is given as 3 is to 8, and y is to z is given as 5 is to 9, we can set up a proportion. X is to y is equal to 3 is to 8, which is equal to 3 divided by 8. And y is to z is equal to 5 is to 9, which is equal to 5 divided by 9. Now let's set up the equation using the common term. We can write the equation as x divided by 8 is equal to 5 divided by 9. Shifting 9 to the left-hand side and 8 to the right-hand side, we get 9x is equal to 8 multiplied by 5. Simplifying further, we get 9x is equal to 40. Shifting 9 to the right-hand side, we finally get the value of x, which is 40 divided by 9. Now that we have the value of x, we can write the ratio x equals z. The ratio will be x is to z is equal to 40 divided by 9 is to z. Now, to find the value of z, we need to use the second given ratio and substitute the value of y from the first ratio. Y is equal to 8 from the ratio x is to y is equal to 3 is to 8. Y is to z is equal to 5 is to 9. And 8 is to z is equal to 5 is to 9. Now we'll set up the proportion and solve for z. 8 divided by z is equal to 5 divided by 9. By shifting the 9 to the left-hand side and z to the right-hand side, we get 9 multiplied by 8 is equal to 5 multiplied by z. By simplifying, we get 72 is equal to 5z. Shifting z to the left-hand side and 72 to the right-hand side, we get z is equal to 72 divided by 5. Now that we have the values of x and z, we can simplify the ratio x is to z by dividing both values by their greatest common divisor. So, x is equal to 40 divided by 9 and z is equal to 72 divided by 5. So, our simplified ratio x is to z will be x is to z is equal to 40 divided by 9 is to 72 divided by 5. Or, we can write it as x is equal to 40 divided by 9 and z is equal to 72 divided by 5. Now for our final trick, we'll be comparing three ratios. We have A is to B is equal to 1 is to 2, B is to C is equal to 3 is to 4, C is to D is equal to 5 is to 6, and we need to find A is to B is to C is to D. To compare these ratios, we need to establish a common ratio. In this case, we can choose B, since it appears in both the A is to B and B is to C ratios. To make the ratios compatible, we need to scale them up or down so that the common term B is the same in both ratios. Let's scale up the A is to B ratio by multiplying both sides by 3, and the B is to C ratio by multiplying both sides by 2. A is to B is equal to 1 is to 2, and after multiplying them by 3, we get A is to B is equal to 3 is to 6. Similarly, B is to C is equal to 3 is to 4, and after multiplying them by 2, we get B is to C is equal to 6 is to 8. Now we have A is to B is equal to 3 is to 6. B is to C is equal to 6 is to 8. And since C is to D does not require scaling, so it is equal to 5 is to 6. Now that we have compatible ratios, we can combine them to find the final ratio A is to B is to C is to D. So A is to B is to C is equal to A is to B multiplied by B is to C is equal to 3 is to 6. Multiply by 6 is to 8 is equal to 3 is to 8. So far, we have A is to B is to C equals 3 is to 8. To include D, we need to bring the C is to D ratio into the equation. Since we already have C in the ratio A is to B is to C, we can multiply the existing ratio by the C is to D ratio. So A is to B is to C is to D is equal to A is to B is to C multiply by C is to D is equal to 3 is to 8 multiplied by 5 is to 6 is equal to 15 is to 48. Therefore, the final ratio is A is to B is to C is to D is equal to 15 is to 48. Thank you for watching, and feel free to leave any questions or comments down below.